Storyteller circus is coming to your town. The best bang for your buck, it is the only game around where you forget about your troubles, at least for a little while. We never charge a cover, we just want to see you smile here at Storyteller Circus. And we're coming to your town. Underneath this old new big top, it's where the adventure will go down. Here at Storyteller Circus.
Hodie Christus natus est, hodie Salvator apparui. I am the bard. I am the poet. I am the wordsmith. I am the troubadour. I am your New Age knight. I am your humble storyteller. So gather round, friends, gather round. It's time for another tale from the Storyteller's Storytime Giant Storybook of Stories. Our tale begins as it should, at the top. On the world of Arcona, nestled in amongst the valleys, hills, and high peaks of the Forgotten Mountains, lies the kingdom of Idgaff. The people of Idgaff can trace their lineage to the nomadic tribes of barbarians who wandered these mountains and areas for generations untold. It wasn't until perhaps 472 years ago that the wandering tribes finally came together under one banner, that being Tigroff I. It was during a time of turmoil with the local hill giants, who the barbarians have a blood feud that runs back from into time immemorial. Tigroff I brought the barbarian tribes under his banner, and with their combined might, after many years of conflict and battle, were finally able to push back the hill giants enough to where they could live in relative peace. King Tigroff lived for 13 more years before his death of natural causes. In his foresight, he had set up a king's tournament, a last man standing battle royale. Winner take all, winner takes the crown. So that the age-old grievances between the tribes, without the advent of the hill giants to unite them, they needed an avenue to air these grievances. And it also gave the various tribes a sense that they had a chance at the true power. In his infinite wisdom, King Tigroff set this up because he knew that upon his death, if he did not, there'd be much jockeying for his position and just chaos. He wanted to preserve the peace. So he did. So from that point on, after his death and interment, the first King's Tournament was held. And from then until the present, it remained unchanged. That was until a particular person entered into the King's Tournament. His name was Ruckard Davanus. See, Ruckard was of average height, perhaps a bit above average height, but by barbarian standards, he was considered short and slight. You know, him being 5'8", 5'9", normal height, amongst a bunch of barbarians who are 6.5 to 7 feet tall, you can understand why. He vowed that he would not shed one drop of blood in the King's Tournament, and that he would take the crown. Well, the populace thought this was a joke, and took bets upon when he would die, some betting that he would be the first to die, some betting that he would last as high as number 10. He fooled them all. With his keen intellect and cunning and strategy, he was able to be one of the last two standing. It was Ruckard and the Bunisher, as he was called by the mob, or the Savage Bunisher. He was a tribesman from a minor noble house, the Bunish house, and he was your typical barbarian, big, strong, tall, always wading in headfirst into battle. You see, Rookard, he used his skill and his training as a monk to deliver a fury of blows that essentially knocked the Punisher completely out cold. Punisher, realizing that he'd been defeated, begged for death, because it was amongst the highest honor amongst the barbarians to die in battle, and an even greater honor to die in the king's tournament. Rookard refused. He spared him. The Punisher, in his shame, went into self-imposed exile, never able to show his face again. Well, the first years of King Rookard's rule were marked by continuing aggressions with the Hill Giants. He was branded as Rookard the Coward because he had won by barbarian standards or cowardly means. But he was thinking about the future and always planning on how to leave a legacy that would prosper the kingdom of Idgaff for many generations to come. So, through, again, his keen intellect and strategy, he was able to lure the hill giant who was causing the most trouble. And his name was Idgaff the Ugly. And he had gathered an assortment of hill giants and orcs and goblins and stuff through sheer coercion and threats of violence. And he was threatening to tear apart the fabric of Idgaff that King Rookard and the previous kings had fought so hard to maintain. Well, whereas during the king's tournament, King Rookard had held back, in this instant, he did not. He convinced the ugly ogre hill giant to combat him in single combat, winner takes all. It was at this time that the true savagery and brilliance of Rookard's attacks became fully known to people. His years as a monk in training allowed him to repeatedly land blows onto strategic pressure points on this hill giant, which rendered him useless. And without showing mercy, King Idgaff ended the war. It was from this point forward that King Idgaff was beloved. King Rookard was beloved by his people. So much so that he was able to bring in sweeping changes, which expanded his borders and markets, and there was prosperity, and there was not want within the kingdom of Idgaff, thanks to King Rookard. He vowed that he would not shed blood in the king's tournament, but he would maintain the tradition of it, except this time it would be a contest of strength and various things, but there would be no deaths. Thinking that this was the right course of action, he made this announcement to the kingdom. The kingdom blatantly refused. So in love and enamored were they by King Rookard the Coward, whose name became a sense of pride instead of an insult. And the people of Idgaff are fiercely loyal to their king and dare anyone to besmirch the name of their king. They refused to allow the king's tournament to continue and demanded that from that point on, only members of King Rookard's bloodline would wear the crown. And so, we complete our tale of the kingdom of Idgaff. So, like, follow, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. I love y'all, and I hope to hear from you soon, all my circus freaks.